All right, we are live. I am Alicia from I Love Vampire Novels. Welcome back. I have Alex Timothy with me today. She is a gay YA sci-fi author of Alien Heart and the Survive the Street series, which we have. Let me show you. They're super cute. That's the series, and this is standalone. Oh my god, all three of them are great, by the way. I've read all three of them. So she is also an avid reader of gay romance books, so I'm excited to hear the insights.
Yeah, and gay sci-fi and gay supernatural, but fantasy.
Can you tell us a little bit about what this one's about?
This is about it's kind of an alternative future where aliens have come to Earth, and one thing leads to another, and we go to war with them. And so it's kind of this farm boy from Kansas, and he's basically drafted into the war against, he doesn't want to go, and it's sort of his adventures as he goes, and he eventually becomes I think this isn't a spoiler. He gets captured, and there's a romance that develops with,
which we will talk a little bit more about later, but it's his coming of age story, which I really, really enjoy.
Yeah.
He does grow a lot.
It's definitely a coming of age story, more even than a romance.
I think, but still excellent world building. We will talk again more about those as we get on at the end, which also stay tuned for our July announcement at the end, because I'm going to be announcing what book we're reading next month. This month, we read A Marvellous Light, so if you have read it and you're here, please let me know in the comments. But briefly, what it's about is A Marvellous Light, of course, is a gay fantasy romance about a magician and a baron. Is he a baron? Baron? They called him something different.
I don't know. He's a sir. Yeah, I guess he's a baron.
They called it something different, and I think it's more the English
way of saying a country baron.
Yeah. For simplicity, he's a baron, right? And they're kind of thrust together as partners to investigate magical instances to see if they're actually real or not, and if they're going to need to be covered up. So first, we have a man who holds Robin's position. Reggie is being tortured and killed for a contract in the very first part of the book, something connected to a large well of magic available to magicians from the Fae. Once Robin takes his place, the same men lay a curse on him to further attempt to locate that contract. And Edwin, his new work liaison, into magic before taking him home in the hope of breaking that curse. Unfortunately, Edwin doesn't have much magic, and when they stay at the house, which is frankly full of magical sociopaths, while Edwin researches the means of breaking the curse, multiple times he asks about someone with more magic having to implement these spells that he creates. And there's, of course, a lot of pain with the curse, a magical boating game gone wrong, men chasing and trying to kill these two in a dangerous half-sentient hedge maze that they're thrown into, a sudden inheritance, and a plot that involves both Edwin's and Robin's families. But let's not forget that Robin, as a non-magical man, is suddenly receiving visions as well. He gains foresight, which makes him a little bit more dangerous and a little bit more sought after.
Yeah.
So during their escapades, they also discover shared sexuality and attraction to each other, hence the romance. Robin, being him, throws himself into it, but Edwin, who has been mistreated by his family for so long, is a little bit too scared to open up. So I kind of like that it ends in a win-lose situation. They win a little bit, they lose a little bit.
Yeah. I thought at the end it was kind of, they were gonna keep the thing,
the contract, the pieces
of it. Yeah, but no, they let that go, and there's something big is coming. So yes. There's like there's definitely lots of room for the sequels to.
And there is a sequel, which I'm excited to read. Which I saw the two girls on, so I'm wondering who that.
I didn't know.
Is it weird that I kind of wanted to be Miss Morrissey and Maud?
Wait,
is that weird?
Which one's Maud?
Maud's the little.
I thought that's
Robin's little sister is Maud. And then
Oh,
Edwin's
Maudie.
little sister is
Belle.
Belle. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Me too.
That would be
I'm
excellent.
shipping Miss Morrissey and Maud
That-
for sure. Belle is the worst. Maud is also a little worse, but
she's 18, so it's like
yeah, and it has a lot to do with the role of women in society too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's one of the things historical fiction tends to grate against me with, is the women being suppressed so much and like you so controlled, and I'm just like,
I mean,
control me.
they're annoying because of that, but they're still annoying. Those two characters. Belle is.
Oh, I can't. She's the big sociopath, I feel like.
Yeah, they're all his
Yeah.
family. Edwin's
Family's terrible. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else I need to say before we actually get into the deep stuff. Well, I think we can go. So my first question, of course, we always start with, what is your overall rating?
Oh, I went with 4.5 stars. I thought it was really well done. I really felt like I could see she did a great job with like the setting and the time period, but although I'm not totally certain what the time period is. Aren't they driving cars?
Edwardian, so it's like early
Edwardian,
1900s.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, I thought she did a great job with that. Like, it never felt like, a lot of times, you'll read a book set in Victorian or Edwardian times or whatever, and it doesn't feel like they fall out of it, and where somebody says something like, get off it, man, or so I don't know, but they'll say something, or just something where you're like, well, and but she really captured that time period and had it down really well. And then the settings were, beautiful. They were beautiful. I felt like I saw them,
Yes. And didn't go on too long about them either, because that's one of my big things is I like to get like real quick back to the action. I'm more of an internal.
Yeah. I'm saying all that about setting, but it wasn't like I was reading pages of flower descriptions.
It wasn't Stephen King. Sorry if you like Stephen King.
I do like Stephen King.
He goes on for pages about things, so just like get on with it. Definitely not. And a lot of pretty language that kind of condensed those images really well.
Yeah, she really, the dialogue, the setting, the characters, they all felt like from that time period and did a great job with that,
And speaking of one of those descriptions, I have one of those as my example on my phone, just to read. And this was actually in the first chapters. The best that could be said about the man at present was that he stood partly between Reggie and the glare of the sun, which was dipping slowly through the afternoon sky and cradled in a tree fork of blue space like a burning rock pulled back in a slingshot, hovering, waiting. At any moment, it could be released and come flying towards them, and they'd all be brightly obliterated.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, very typical, too, of how all the descriptions went in there. It was all really, really well done. Yeah.
Did you notice there's a lot of flight references?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Especially like when Edwin was in the library with the books, and all of a sudden the like glow of the light, and that's when Robin was like, "Oh man, this man is attractive. How was I still blind to this before?"
Yeah.
And kind of that spark keeps being introduced with light.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
Yeah, cool.
I too said 4.5 to 5 because I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was like the best thing I ever read, but it's still pretty high up there. Like, I wasn't, when I was done, like, oh no, it's done. I'm like, oh, it hit a good conclusion. It was a really solid book, as we were saying before.
Yeah.
So I especially liked the opposition of Robin and Edwin. They were very, very different characters, and that kind of played into the overall
they were
cohesion of the story.
And they were a good characterization to rub up against each other. That came out.
I mean, that too, very literally. But yeah, they kind of made themselves push the story forward because they had their own set personalities. Yeah,
that typically Robin would be someone that would bully Edwin, and but instead he's not that kind of guy, So.
And he wants to protect him, which is also really cute.
Yeah, that he's a decent guy. He's being misjudged, and he's attracted to Edwin. Edwin's still leery, like, oh, is this guy going to be a jerk to me, like everyone always was?
Like when he goes to that first dinner and he's trying to be polite, and that politeness counteracting with, that social acceptability and like what he wants to do to defend this man.
Yeah.
So like the put on smiles, and he's just like,
yes,
say one more
yes.
thing, I'm gonna get up across this table. And then of course that finally breaks at the end when they're talking about his sister. And he actually finally breaks social etiquette, and he's like, we're leaving right now.
Yeah.
And I loved that development.
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
because
He does have a line where he's not always like that. Yeah, I don't know what. So who was your favorite character?
It was hard to choose between Edwin and Robin.
Me too. Like I was thinking, okay, Edwin, because he's so interesting, right? He's uptight and he's got all these issues, and he's really smart. And I loved too that he wasn't like the chosen one magic wise, like that he was kind of sucks at magic, and so. And I love too that he needed the string to do it, because he does it. Because we see him do magic without the string
once, I think.
So he doesn't need it, but it's like this.
It makes it more
notes,
precise.
Yeah.
It's like using a tool to make what you're doing better versus trying to winging it. I kind of think of it as like when I cook, I kind of wing it instead of using a recipe.
Yeah.
So he needs the recipe, or he can't do it.
I like that he had that. I felt like that went with his character, and I could relate with never wanting to let go of my notes to something.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, I really liked Robin because he was a good guy. He's a decent person in a book with not a lot of decent people.
Oh my God. I know.
And he's also like, it just that he was our gateway into that magical world, because he just kind of got thrust into it. He was like the Harry Potter that like he came from not knowing about it to. So that was who we could relate to,
Right, and I feel like Edwin also gave us a lot to relate to, because whereas Robin was the easygoing, that gateway, he was also like very courageous and everything else, and Edwin was the one who was more like fearful of everything and a little bit more reserved, and like, I don't interact with people. This is not something that I'm used to doing. I'm not used to people having trust in me to think that I can actually do something, and that's who he was for Robin, which made him, like a broken man character.
I do too, which is why I was like, who else I thought was really interesting with John Alston, who's like hostile, that Baron Hawthorne.
Yes, he was in.
I want to know more. Yes, like I want to know more.
Like such an asshole.
Oh well, he was. He just like outed Edwin. I mean, right in front. He doesn't know that Robin is also gay, and so he just outed him right in such an
offhand, like mean,
sadistic way. Yeah, yes. And so of course I was like, yes, I must know more. All right, let's come back to him.
I'm trying to see if there's anything else I liked about the two of them. I really liked how he protected himself, Edwin specifically. Like, again, they're so opposite. I also really like Miss Morrissey. So,
she was super
interesting,
likable. Yeah.
Unruffled, I'm good at my job, and like especially at the end, she's like, I can do this job. I've been doing it because I'm a woman, and I think she's Indian.
Yeah.
And she's like, nobody will let me do it, but I've been doing it. So like, what's the deal? I love
she's
that
actually
attitude.
running the office, and I
feel that way. I have felt that way a lot before, so that might be why I connected with her.
Yeah, I think she's the most like a modern reader would be like, oh, okay, I know this person.
Yeah. And we didn't see too much subjugation of her too, which also made me like her a little bit more. And then the times we saw her transform into this like different person, in order to get through system, and she just like looks at Robin. She's like, I learned that from this.
Yeah,
it's like, all right, you know how to navigate the world because you're intelligent. Thank you for showing us that.
Yes.
So okay.
Unlike Belle and Maude.
Oh, Maude, I feel like tries a little bit. She wants to go off to college at least, so like. You have that little bit of development that gives you sympathy for her, where she used to cry in Robin's bed, and he's like, she's upset about what plans her parents have for her. Which is a very that time frame kind of issue. Maybe modernly, if I met someone like Maude, I might not be as interested in her because of the time frame.
I was just like, I was totally on board with what an annoying little sister. When she shows up, I was like, what are you doing?
Like how dangerous that could have been for her too.
Yes.
But I understand the wanting to seek adventure.
Yes.
So like she's complex enough that like I would like her if she was the next main character. But in this book, there was just enough of her to be both interesting and annoying.
Well, she's the irritating little sister,
She hit her character spot pretty well. Okay, so favorite scene or chapter that you had?
Gosh, this was hard because I think I was like, okay, chapter 12, when they go to the hedge and Mrs. Sutton, and they,
Love Mrs. Sutton
because
too.
I feel like I really had but you know what? I loved everything leading up to that too, because I was like, it was unraveling the mystery, and then finally I felt like I had my footing a little in this world and everything, and I like when that whole new thing is opened up, like, oh well, Edwin might have magical abilities in a different kind of magic than
That his family didn't know about, they didn't know to kind of stoke in him and to develop, which means he was just left thinking he was worthless.
And you know that they've got such a strict hierarchy in this magical world, and it gives you an idea. Well, maybe the higher ups, they don't know everything, because Mrs. Sutton is working a whole different kind of magic.
Yeah, because they said at the end when they were referencing her notes and stuff, Edwin was, that her and the other women weren't being taught because women don't get taught this kind of thing, which I think is part of Belinda's obnoxiousness.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, her husband is the worst to her, right? She's
just like takes over. Oh, your female brain can't understand this. Let me explain.
I know. I mean, yeah, it's like those two sisters, Belle and the two younger sisters. They bothered me, but they were absolutely victims of their time period. So I guess they bothered me to teach me a valuable lesson.
But yeah, Miss Sutton was studying with the other women and developed their own kind of magic without rules.
Yeah.
Which is just this great thing, because that's also like shown the whole magical system for everybody else has those rules. And of course, Robin, even though they keep saying like he's not smart, he's not very smart compared to Edwin, no, but he's intelligent enough to make the connections, all of the ones that Edwin's, well, you hit one of those other things that is very important to the way it works. And here's why that doesn't work.
So I thought that was a really cool scene, and you really and I liked how it kind of I finally felt my footing, but then you got all this new stuff too.
It was a slow build of the magical world. I also liked in the hedge mage scene where Edwin was like, don't come in here, and of course Robin barrels right through.
Yeah.
She was like, you wouldn't have survived without me coming to help.
And that's so Robin.
And then Edwin gets mad at him for it. Look how you could have died. And it's like, but you could have died, but he doesn't care about himself. And it's like that whole the building of their emotional romance.
Right. And that's really like cute. Their characters so much.
They're both very caring and sweet once you get past all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite scene, I also said it was a hard one. You know me, I like a lot of the intimate scenes, if not just because it kind of broke down the characters a little bit more in those scenes and kind of gave them a little bit of developmental, like they developed during them. It wasn't just actions and sex. It was the back and forth of, is this okay? Showing genuinely their both of their personalities during it. Robin actually showing a little bit of trepidation where he's like, I want to do this for you, but Edwin's so buttoned up that he just can't take the pleasure, like he can't take receiving the pleasure. He can only give it as if that's all he's worth. And slowly building him out of that at the end where he finally gives in. Because they even mentioned in the last sex scene, Robin's like, he says he wants it hard and fast, but only because he doesn't think he's worth like opening up and showing that slow temptation. So that's why he does it slow that time. Probably because of Hawthorne.
Yeah.
Treating him so miserably.
Yeah.
So I did like a lot of the development during that, and like even the parts where Robin was like, I like to watch your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And that being a whole part of it, and Edwin peeking over his shoulder as he's touching him, going, oh, that doesn't look half bad. So I'm an erotica writer, so like I like those things.
Yes. I was gonna say you saw a lot more in that.
I did. Well, just because I've read a lot of romance steamy scenes where like a lot of it's just action. Like they're doing this to them and this is what they feel like, instead of having that internal character development during it, which I feel like she did very well.
Mm-hmm.
So but besides liking the sexy erotica stuff, the magical scenes are really, really cool. Like all of the major magical scenes, or like the hedge mage walking through that mirror to get into the bag, the inheritance,
Yeah.
That was probably one of my favorite, is when he finally gained something for himself.
Yes, I think that was why I also liked that whole deal with Mrs. Sutton and the maze and him getting the place, you know. And
him actually having some magic. I even really liked at the end, like the last scene with his older brother Walt in that room, that same room in the Sutton house, and finally, like he's like, I made a promise that once I left that I wouldn't hurt you, but I haven't left yet, so I can hurt you, and holds his hand down, and then suddenly his magic bursts out of him.
Yeah.
And it's like, finally.
And what was he going to do? He was going to chop off his fingers?
I think he was going to cut off one of his fingers or something.
Yeah, so he couldn't do magic? Or I don't know. It was like...
his magic, something.
Yeah, it was something really horrible. But it's like... But, you know, then they also... He's like... He works for, like, the magical... What do they call themselves?
The assembly?
The assembly?
The assembly.
Okay. And and so something's coming. So you kind of get this idea like, okay, there's maybe the bad guys are not all bad, but Walter is sadistic.
He's a bad person.
Yeah, he's a bad person.
Which is probably good for his political position.
Yeah.
And I won't get too deep into that, but I oftentimes find that the bully does well in the political position.
Right. Right. And the psychopath.
The psychopath, yes. But you can stick to your plan really well without worrying about other people and if they die.
But so there was that too, where they were setting up that, which I thought was really cool with the magic. But yes, I loved when the vines all burst through the wall.
Down, and then he finally got that real fear of, oh, maybe I shouldn't pick on my brother anymore.
Yeah.
Oh man, and was it just Edwin that he really picked on?
Yep.
At least in the family, we don't see him doing it outside.
Yeah, of it, but who knows outside? Yeah, and you know, I thought it was pretty cool because he made him take just how the writer did this, where it was like the oath that kind of saved Edwin, and oath is also what kind of did in Reggie in the beginning, right? He was suffering from one of the exact oaths, the exact type of oath that saves Edwin. And so I was like, oh, cool. She set that all up, you know? That was
a really good job of setting
I was like, that was very good.
Now, during it, did you believe that somebody in the family was connected? Because she set that trap early on of, well, you know, they heard us say we were going here, but they also had the tracker on the curse. So, like, was it one of the family members or their friends, the entourage at Corsi's house?
Yeah, I kept wondering. It seemed like it was going to be that other couple that was visiting, and so far
they're in love with Belinda and Charles.
Yeah, but so far, I mean, unless something comes out in the next book, they really had nothing to do with it. You know,
it was the third person in that party.
Yeah,
which was we should have guessed because he was too keen and too interested in everything and a little bit too happy for having just been up with, right?
Yeah, and I didn't know. So yeah, when they come back and they think, oh, they're the only people that knew we were going here, and so it has to be someone in the party. I kept thinking, really? Or, you know, I don't know. I kept feeling, I felt like it was, I didn't know.
It's like almost a red herring.
Yes.
Especially since the one person who did hear it, like he was just what do you call that? Like a henchman or whatever. He was just an underling. Like he didn't really mean anything. Wanted the power for himself and so was doing what he could.
Yeah.
Whereas like even Walt's not the main bad guy. Like we get that at the end. We still don't know who the main guy is behind it.
Yeah, and which
makes me wonder if it's not their father.
Oh.
The father works and stuff, but you know, and it's sanctioned by the assembly to go searching for this thing.
Yeah.
So who is the strongest?
Also, there's the mystery of Alton's sister, Alston.
Yes, what happened to the Hawthorns? Yeah, I keep thinking of him as Hawthorne.
Yeah, that's so confusing
died.
In any like British. How they have a different name of their property.
5 different names.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, what?
I think her name was Elise, and she was like the most magical person, but she was a woman, and so she wasn't allowed to do a lot of the things. Yeah, and then did she take his magic or did he take her magic? I can't remember. When she died, she took his magic, I think.
Maybe.
She died. And of course, we don't really know how she died. Like, I feel like they told us a little bit, but not detailed enough to understand
Yeah,
what
I think it's a
actually
mystery,
happened.
like whatever happened to her, nobody knows.
Hopefully the
I
next
feel like
book will
that.
figure that out.
Yeah, I bet that's coming in the next book.
I really hope so. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on here that I really
The
liked.
cradling. That was cool.
That
You
was
know, I
really
thought it
cool.
was really, she came up with a unique thing that felt like believable, you know.
Especially in the magical world. So let's talk a little bit more about the magical system, because it was interesting, and we've talked a little bit about it already, but it was so Harry Potter sometimes. Which,
Well, I liked that it came from the Fae. That was
Yes.
that was a twist. That was not a Harry Potter type
that
thing.
wasn't a Harry Potter type thing, but it does remind me. So the Fae link, the way Belinda was like playing with Maud, and how they said,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, we unbushel," which is showing normal humans magic for the first time. They unbushel them and then they wipe their memory. That is something that Fae does in a lot of their myths. Is
Yeah.
they charm
Yeah,
them,
and
bring them, and
you
then
know
leave
what?
them without
If you
memories.
look at Belle too, didn't she act a lot like a Fae?
Like a pixie or something.
Yeah.
Yes. She had like
right? This is all.
Well, that's where the magic is supposed to come from. It's from the Fae, and so it makes sense that it would.
Yeah, affect their personalities or something. But yeah,
Yes, so.
Belle was and that would make me. It would make me forgive her a lot if she was. If actually she's some type of fairy, but yeah,
that would be really cool. I had a thought, and it just went, but the way her and the other girl kind of flitter about and have no real sense except for gossip and being able to show off, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that Fae thing. I was surprised there wasn't anything in their food other than the mint thing. A lot of the times, like I was waiting for them to have snuck it in on Robin.
Yeah, I would have been scared to eat anything in that house after, especially because the arrow. That's what made him. I would have left, but and the book would end. I would be a bad character.
I would be too. Let's go back to a little bit about some of the Harry Potter connections, because I feel like they were stronger in the beginning of the book, like the enchanted quill. I was like, that's such a Harry Potter thing, like initially.
And we were saying too, you could see this being a Draco and Harry fanfic at some, point.
Although sometimes I see a little bit of the other
Markse
characters in there. Could have been Hermione.
I mean, you really got those feel. And
Edwin
Draco
also
and
could have
Harry,
been partly Hermione too, though, being as much into the books as he was. I feel like Robin was like a Harry Ron, and Edwin was like a Draco Hermione, and then like mix and mash of characters.
You lost me.
Well, Draco definitely in his dour.
Okay. Robin as Harry Ron and Draco. Okay,
and Edwin is the Draco Hermione.
Sunk in. Yeah, I do see what you're saying.
The books and the studying and the trying.
Yeah.
Because she comes from a non-magical family, and so she's trying to prove herself, and that's something that Edwin's doing.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the personality feels more Hermione than it does Draco, because Draco.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Although Draco was bullied.
Yeah.
So, but by his father.
Yeah.
So there's a big mix.
Yeah.
In it.
But if you're a fan of Harry Potter fan fiction, you probably like this.
I would definitely say inspired by.
Yeah, I'm gonna say. I mean, yeah, I'll say that.
But I like how she got out of some of that Harry Potter restriction stuff. I still like that there was a magical.
Oh yeah, she for sure made
world.
this all her own, even if it was just a coincidence. That's good too. But it's like, yeah, this was definitely all her own type of magic.
I do like that she included the one thing like Ron's dad works at, where he's part of the magistry.
Right.
And they still kind of have that in there. I really hope we get more of that in the next book too. Like how that works.
Yeah.
If not just because you have humans that work there too, but what Robin's role is going to be in the future with his being able to see things in the future.
Right.
Showing us more of that. But it also depends on what characters we follow. If we follow Miss Morrissey, we'll get a lot more of it, I feel like.
I didn't realize that the next book follows the women until you said that, because that would have been
guessing from the cover.
Yes. that has the two women. Now, and once you said that, I was like, oh, right, that's true. Because that was like, I was like, oh, if they're keeping with this, I kind of wished that Edwin and Robin hadn't totally gotten together at the end. I mean, I love a slow burn, so
Yeah.
I was like, I would have wanted it to last, throughout the series and them at the end. But now I can see why.
We're going same world but different characters,
Right.
kind of
Okay,
thing.
that makes sense.
Yeah, and you know me, I like the more sex generally the better, as long as it's got a point. There's some that I've read some books recently where I've just been like, there's why are we doing this again? It's the same thing as last time. This one at least developed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that was true too. I like that as well.
Trying to think if there's anything else about the system that I really wanted to say. I really liked how Edwin could write out a spell like a recipe, like directions.
Yeah,
For
I
people,
wish it had a little more about that. Just I wanted to. I felt like I didn't really understand that connection with the cradling, but like how you work the spell from the recipe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was where.
Certain hand movements, I guess, which is why he used the string, is to make those precise things that he would write down.
Mm-hmm.
And how you could build it out of different kinds of spells, like the housekeeping spell, where you pull off a stain.
Right.
So it was really cool that everybody else was like, oh, what's this little bit here? I don't recognize that. It's like, no, you wouldn't, because you don't do any of that for yourself. Like, you don't mend your own clothes, you don't clean up after yourself, or any of that royalty put on and then seeing those kinds of things, like, oh, this is a little bit different, and then trying to match those movements. In addition to the fact that the reason Edwin can do it is because he needs that precision in that recipe. Like, somebody who does not have the skills to cook has to follow it step by step, whereas everybody else, it just kind of throws their hands around, and they have enough magic that you kind of get the gist of it, but it's not precise.
Yeah.
And like Edwin making sure Charles, like, show me how you do it. Nope, gotta tweak this. This is how you do it, like this. And it's like very precise, which of course is something Robin likes about him too.
Yeah. And I love this whole this subplot kind of that. There's a whole kind of magic that's been ignored because women use it. So they only know half of what's available to them for
like the
thing
magic
coming. Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to know more about it.
Which Edwin has too, which is interesting. I wonder what kind of connections that's going to have later, because a lot of the women had that magic, but now Edwin's got that magic. Is it seen as weaker? Like, is there a parallel to that?
Yeah, I was wondering that too, because Mrs. Sutton even says to him, "There's more than what these men know." So I was like, "What? Why him?"
Because he's been subjugated from his weaknesses, much like women are.
Maybe, and then
maybe I'm reading into that.
There's the mystery of his mother too, like
what's going on with his mom? Yeah, so there's a lot of mysteries around the women.
Yeah,
the sister that died, the mom, Miss Sutton, and then even Miss Morrissey. I'm curious about her and her sister too.
Yeah, and her sister, right?
And what's going on? Like, I love one part, and it feels so bad because it's like such a moment where her former fiance, who is one of the bad guys, and he's like, "If you loved me enough, you would have said no," and she's like, "You're right."
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't love you enough.
I know.
Without saying it, I'm just, yes, kill shot.
The sister was very cool how she comes in at the end. And at first I thought, oh no, because we've seen such dysfunctional
families and
from Edwin, and so I was really worried when they called the sister in, but they have she and Miss Morrissey are solid.
Tight, yeah. Which is interesting because we also see a lot of, even though Robin and Maud are really, they might not be like best friends or whatever, but he's very defensive of her and he wants to protect her and stuff, but his parents were also terrible people.
Yes.
Who tried to make themselves look good by giving to charity and then talking poorly behind their friend's back and all that other stuff, that using him as a pawn using both their children as pawns. And I'm just like, bad parents all around.
Yeah. But I liked that though. They're all the.
I did too. I felt like they gave them something to connect with, even though it was a different kind of abuse.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that he wasn't worthy enough. It's just that he had to do what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't like. I'm told what to do. That's the problem. We've talked a little bit about this, but how did you feel about the romance in general?
Yeah, like I said, I would have liked it to end where the romance is just heating up at the end and just to stretch it out over the books. But I don't think that was what that wasn't the vision the author had for this. So, that's just a personal preference of mine. And I thought, yeah, I just, they fall in love. Well, yeah, I'm just going to say it's a personal preference. They fall in love too quickly for me. So.
Now, were they falling in love or were they falling in like infatuation with each other for most of it?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean,
it kind of is a fine line for a lot of it, but it is very early that they become a little bit obsessed with each other once they both realize each other is gay.
And I always like the part too, Robin to be pining after him a bit longer and a bit more intensely.
Yeah, I just stretch that out a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. I just, like I said, that's what I like in a romance. It's just a little more pining.
I think the first time they have any real moment is like literally right halfway through the book, right after the maze, where he like touches his cheek and stuff. And they're about to kiss, but of course that's interrupted.
Yeah.
But then like we shove right into it once they're alone again. So, no, I have not read a lot of male romances, and so I've really liked some of the littler details in there. Again, like Robin's obsession with Edwin's hands.
Yeah.
And the little smiles that he's able to get out of him to make him, I guess, not so rigid or whatever, to show some actual emotion other than like, don't touch me, don't look at me, I'm not here, I don't exist.
And I always like the dynamic where it's like the one prickly character and the other one's like a big puppy.
Sunshine, Grumpy Sunshine.
Yeah, that's a good dynamic that's fun to read, I think.
Which is usually like the big burly man is the grumpy one, and in the traditional with the little female, or I guess the little twink, is the Sunshine. So
this is a little bit of a twist on that. But.
I liked that this didn't have that dichotomy, even though it was very obvious that Edwin was the smaller of the two, or the more feminized, I guess, only a little bit. And that Robin was only a little bit more, I guess, masculine because he was athletic or whatever. So what we normally traditionally think of as those roles. Yeah. She did a good job of like undoing us trying to think of them in that masculine, feminine way.
Yeah, especially because the first time they have sex, I think Edwin tops, right? Yeah. And so that was kind of
It's not what I expected that
right, exactly.
For the first time.
That was like a switch on what you expected.
I was waiting for Robin to just be like, take him against the wall.
Right.
How I would write it.
Which I maybe would have liked. It's like, but I thought that too was coming. But so she did that. That was kind of unexpected.
I like the equality in their kind of sexual experiences as they got through them. Like they both did the same kind of things to each other, and they both enjoyed it and were able to create a good balance.
And they're both they both knew what it was to keep that on the down low because of the time period and everything, and so
they could be an experiment versus an actual being wanted.
Yeah. And so that was good.
So that leads me to that one last question I had, if you're comfortable answering it. So how do you feel like this compares to other male romances in the romance department, especially like I know a lot of like boy love comics and manga stuff that Rita has very kind of defined tropes in it. So I hear you and Caitlin talking about it all the time.
Yeah, I think, well, like I said, that's kind of almost a trope, the prickly blonde, and the big, strong kind of puppy-like character. So you see that a lot in boys love manga, and you see it in romance stories. And so, I thought this was a good combination of, playing into that trope, but also having your own separate,
making it more real life.
Yeah, more real life. And I think too, the outsider and the person that knows everything, on the inside the world, and kind of bringing the other one in. So that was, I guess that's not even a trope for kids. I can't think of what else is.
Well, I was thinking of also those two erotic scenes that both boys had referenced during their like sexual scenes. Like there's a lot of whipping in the one, and the torture turning and not torture being tied down in the other one.
We forgot to say how they read those erotic
they both read
books.
The erotic,
the erotica. And I wanted a little bit more about that. It's like, as long as you brought it up.
You know what would have been a good scene?
Yeah.
To have them read one of those together.
Yes.
I'm sorry. It's like one of the things that I would love to read. Like, watch each other react into reading it out loud.
Yeah, because I felt like it needed something, because I was like, okay, you brought it up, and it just went,
We only get it like 3 or 4 times, I think. They discover it in the library when he goes and buys another wrapped one, like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
When they talk about the torture, non-torture, and then when they actually like halfway enact it, which is not really.
Yeah.
There's no actual torture or anything, but holding him down. I think those were the only 4 times I remember seeing any reference to those at all. So I would have liked more of that. Maybe we'll find more of that.
Yeah. So that was I thought that was interesting, but I wanted more. I wanted to know what was in the book or something. Maybe this is my own curiosity. I was like, what about this slave boy? I was like, tell me more.
Hopefully I'm not spoiling too much, but I loved it. It reminded me almost of when you were talking about the one story you're reading with the twins with the disabled leg. I'm like, I want more of those details out of it. So, I'm sorry. Did you have any last comments on the book?
I think it's, a good book. It was really good. It was one of the better ones I'd read, kind of in clunkers in there, and then this one was good.
This one was smooth. It went by really fast.
It was well written. Mm-hmm. It would
highly suggest.
It's lighthearted, like lighthearted fantasy. Yeah. Me too.
Give me some sapphic romance. Okay. So here in a minute, I'm just going to close up real quick, but we're going to talk a little bit more about Alex's books. So first of all, if you showed up, thank you for being here. Our July book club pick is going to be A Sea of Blood and Sapphire by Florence Gray to fit our underwater prompt. I'm not 100% sure what it's about, other than the fact that there's kind of like these siren mermaid kind of things going on. I think it said an adult Little Mermaid story.
Mermaid. Okay.
So
Mermaids.
I figured July is a good time of the year to do an underwater.
There's been a lot of underwater news.
There has been a lot of underwater news. I planned this before
everything for us.
That happened, but we'll be going live on YouTube again July 29th at 2 p.m. to discuss this. We'll also have some reading sprints in July where I'll be live and probably reading this book. So please feel free to join me for that. So what can we share about your books? We talked a little bit about Alien Heart, but there's this other series that you have, which I love. Book 1, book 2, let me get them in frame, right? Doing this backwards. Let's start with these guys. I know that one of your favorite things to write in this was Peyton.
Yeah, it's Peyton. Alternating points of view, the 2 brothers, and Peyton's like your basic arrogant jock type guy, and it's the apocalypse has happened. There's lots of apocalypse, but I
like how protective he was of his brother.
Yeah, and he's very protective of his brother. His brother has a secret that he's had an encounter with the most popular boy in their school, this Gabriel Featherton, who now Gabriel runs the main like gang in their post-apocalyptic world. And Bailey is the younger brother.
I like it. So it's not a spoiler to talk about in the beginning, like the actual
Yeah.
start off of the action is that they're zombies, not zombies, right?
Yeah, they're ill. You know, it's like a thing they call super flu, and it makes you zombie-ish, but you can recover from it. So it's like,
and Bailey gets bitten.
Yeah.
The first bit of it, and so it's about trying to come to terms with that in his point of view.
And he needs protection because people are so afraid of this. They want to kill everybody who's been contaminated by it and not give them a chance to get better, because the chance is very small that you'll get better. And so this is where he has to go to Gabriel, who he's had this both a rivalry with.
Rivalry because, well, that's in book 2. I don't want to spoil it.
Well, he like shut him down. Yeah.
Goes on.
Yeah, I think you get in this one, you get that flashback that he shut him.
Shut him down.
Yeah, he was like, "No, I'm not gay," you know. But he,
but then can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
And that Gabriel's trying to like be nice, but doesn't really know how. I feel like that's something that Gabriel and Peyton have in common, is they both have good intentions for a lot of things, but they just don't seem to know how to be nice.
Yeah.
To other people. So just listen to what I say. I know what's best for you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Gabriel he's manipulative, right? So he doesn't know how to be genuine with anyone, and Peyton has zero people skills.
So he gives no fucks.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. It was so fun to write.
I love a character like that that's just so like unhinged.
Yeah.
And you can kind of do whatever you want, how freeing it is to write a character like that.
And it was also a guy that it's like, I feel like we all know this guy. You've encountered this.
And I will say, there's one hell of a cliffhanger at the end of this one, which made me glad that I read this one first, which just happenstance for me. But I loved Gabriel when I went into this one. Yeah. Because I had read him in this one and I knew what was going on. I'm just like, no, just love him.
I actually like this book so much more. I wrote this one quite a bit. I wrote this one before the pandemic, and then I wrote that one quite a bit after. So,
which is interesting.
Yeah,
I had that pandemic kind of.
I know. I was like, I'm a prophet. It was like it was this illness. It happens. It breaks out into a pandemic in March, and the original
nobody really believes anything's happening with it until it just swallows everybody.
And and I was like, the first symptoms were that you have a cough and you're congested and
a flu, essentially, which I mean, COVID's kind of a super flu.
Yeah, and I was like, I can see the future.
So there's another character in this one. That one's Gabriel, and then his sister
Renee.
And I know we talked a little bit about Renee as a character and how you needed depth in her. What did you end up really liking about Renee in the end?
I liked that she was willing to. She's adaptable. Like, she was to see when she'd made mistakes, and she was willing to rethink things, and she's just as ambitious as Gabriel. She wants everything, and she's filled with jealousy. There's a lot to not like about her, but at her core, she's
doing the same thing. She's trying to help people.
Yeah.
She thinks she knows.
Yeah.
Yes, and she's sick of being ignored because she's a girl.
Yeah. She's very jealous. Gabriel was the favorite child of the family, and she's resented him for it ever since.
I do like the sibling back and forth in this. It's much different than the sibling back and forth.
Yeah.
Because it's obvious they loved each other, and we're just kind of like, Peyton was almost his parent. His parent, and Bailey was like, I'm not a child anymore. You don't have to protect me. But
he is such a child still.
The whole time. And in this one, they're both kind of like children, but adults at the same. Like, they want to be adults, and they're trying to act like adults, but they're still both children.
Yeah, it started. It's a gay romance. It's about the apocalypse and zombies or whatever, but it's really about the sibling relationships. More than anything. That's what it was. That ends up being the focus. These siblings,
which is just really cool. So, really love the ending of this one too. Like, go buy them. I will put the links in the description below once this is over, and try to post those up on our on our social pages so that people
Cool.
can find Alex Timothy. So I think that's about our time. Thank you so much for doing
Thank
this
you
with
for
me.
inviting me. This was a cool book. I'm glad I got to talk about it with you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.